Before we get into today's show, I want to tell you about a new offering from MD Coaches. Group coaching for physicians is a small, virtual, confidential cohort designed to inspire participants to rediscover personal and professional fulfillment. The next cohort begins on Thursday, October 6th, and runs weekly until November 10th. And you can earn 1 CME credit per session, totaling 6 credits in all. To learn more and to register, visit www.mdcoaches.store. Space is limited, so be sure and register today.
The impact that they make and the rheumatologist can make in the life of a patient that comes in horrible pain, many times crippled, and in a couple of months you bring them back to life.
Paging Dr. Cook. Paging Dr. Cook. Dr. Cook, you're wanted in the OR. Dr. Cook, you're wanted in the OR.
Welcome to the Prescription for Success podcast with your host, Dr. Randy Cook.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Prescription for Success. I'm Dr. Randy Cook, your host for the podcast, which is a production of MD Coaches, providing leadership and executive coaching for physicians by physicians to overcome burnout, transition your career, develop as a leader, or whatever your goal might be. Visit MD Coaches on the web at mymdcoaches.com because you're not in this alone. And don't forget, CME credit is available when you listen with us. Just look for CMFI in the show notes to learn how. My guest today is a rheumatologist and also a pioneer in the new medical practice model known as direct specialty care. She grew up in Eastern Europe and now makes her home in Sunnyvale, California. So let's hear my conversation with Dr. Diana Girnita. And I want to welcome my very special guest today, Dr. Diana Girnita, out in Sunnyvale, California, who's going to be talking to us at great length about direct specialty care, particularly as it applies to rheumatology. And Diana, I'm really looking forward to this. Although I've heard a good bit about direct primary care, this business of direct specialty care is sounding very exciting to me. So I'm delighted to have you here, and thank you so much for joining us.
Dr. Cook, thank you very much for inviting me. I feel honored to be part of this, and I'm looking forward to share my journey and the mission that I assumed in the last couple of years.
All righty. Well, that's exactly what we're going to do. Before we get into the details of what you're doing right now, we're going to do what I really like to do a lot, and that is find out about the very beginnings of your background. And I'm always particularly fascinated with people who didn't start out in this country because they are such incredible examples of how a person, when they put their mind to it, can accomplish pretty much anything that they want to. And that certainly applies to you. So tell us about your childhood. You grew up in Romania. What was that like? What was your family life like?
Definitely. I was born in Romania in a small city called Craiova. It's in the south part of Romania. And there I lived until I was 28 years old. I have done all my school there, including my medical school, and I also started my residency. At that point, I started a residency in cardiology because that sounded very, very exciting and I could save lives. Yeah. I have to tell you that none of my parents were physicians. Nobody in my family was a physician. And I was the first one in my family who went to graduate at university. Wow. After me, many others followed. But I remember going up the stairs when I started my medical school. only at that point I realized how far I thought I
Yeah.
got.
Well, where do you think the inspiration came from? You were not really around any medical people
I
in the family. Were there visits to the doctor, and were you around people in healthcare professions that gave you inspiration? How did that happen?
The inspiration came when I was about 12 years old. I was admitted in the hospital
Ah,
with a liver disease. And it was a complicated situation. And I spent about 12 days in the hospital. And just seeing the dynamic in the hospital, I thought that is fascinating
mm,
to come. You know, I look at the doctor who was coming to see me every day, followed by young doctors and nurses. And he was so respectful. I mean, so respected by everyone. And he really did help me. He brought me to a normal life. And he was an incredible physician. And I will always be grateful to that moment that
yeah, I
taught
bet.
me what it means to be a patient, but also what it means to interact with your doctor and how much a doctor can influence your whole life.
And how did your family feel about that? Did you come one day and say, "Well, I'm going to be a physician"? How did that work out?
My family was always very supportive. My parents actually tried to warn me that they cannot help me with anything,
Sure.
but they did support me, and I was very fortunate. I have to tell you that my parents were the foundation of what I am today.
Well, they did very well, obviously. And I'm going to ask you one other thing that's way off our typical subject, but I'm very curious. I know that there was quite a bit of political unrest in Romania, particularly in the late 1980s. And I am curious. I have no idea what your age is, but were you
Yes.
aware of any of that turmoil, and did it have any effect on your life at all?
Yes, it did. So when I was born in 76, 1976, and
Mm-hmm.
until I was 14 years old, I lived in the communist era, and probably the worst of the worst part of the communist area that we lived in Romania between 1980s and 1990s, actually
Mm-hmm.
1989, when the revolution came and our dictator was actually killed. I lived that area, and I remember that we had almost nothing. It was nothing in the stores, nothing to buy, no food.
Mm-hmm.
You know, everything was rationalized from oil, the oil that you had to buy, the vegetable oil, to the
Mm-hmm.
sugar, the bread. We were only allowed to have 2 breads a day as a family of 4. We had
Wow.
to stay in line, to get not a gallon, like half a gallon of milk. And, besides that, my life was not very sad, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
We enjoyed being kids, and our parents tried to protect us. They tried
Sure.
to help us dream big. They always said, you can do whatever you want, and we will be here to help you.
Well, good for them.
But the revolution came, and although I was 14 years old, we had big dreams. We had the
Sure.
dream that we are finally free to say everything that we want, to do everything that we dream of. Because in the communist era, in the
Uh-huh.
communist era, you are not allowed to say whatever you want. You are not allowed to do whatever you want to do, because you will always have to be tied by the political views that you were supposed to have. Even as a child, we were organized, or we were asked to be in certain organization, to be in a way brainwashed with the
Of course.
politics, with the views that we had to follow. And that started at a very young age. But when the revolution came, we thought, finally, we are free to do everything that we want. And it was a time that, a very tumultuous time, when people did not know what to do with the freedom that they have. And, some of the communists ideas persisted for a long time. And that was hard for my generation.
I bet it was. And you were, those of us in this country actually watched the execution of the Ceausescu's on television in 1989. And you would have been about what age at that point?
I was 14.
Wow. And yet, in the midst of all that turmoil, in the midst of an entire nation facing tremendous struggle, you set your eyes on a career in medicine. And how did that actually unfold? Most of the people that are listening to this podcast are not going to have any idea what it's like to apply to medical school in Romania. So can you just give us the quick version of that?
Yes. So medical school in Romania lasts 6 years, and you have to pass an exam. After you graduate high school, you pass an exam, and accordingly to that score that you get in that exam, you can qualify on the number of available spots that a university can offer. And in Romania at that point, there were only 6 universities in the whole country. And I was interested to stay close to my family, and I remain in Craiova. So I passed the exam, I qualified, and I entered to do medical school. And for 6 years, you are in the medical school. And after you graduate, again, there is at this point a national exam. And again, you have to pass that exam to get a certain score. The highest the score, the highest the probability that you're going to get what specialty you want. Because every specialty has a limited number of spots. So think about, for example, cardiology, there are only 50 spots in the whole Romania. So you have to have a high score to qualify for that specialty. And depending on your interests as well, you have to have a higher score to qualify for what you want.
And your pick was cardiology. Any idea why that stood out for you?
Definitely. When I was in my internship year, because you have a 1 year of internship between the time that you graduate and you start residency, my father had a myocardial infarction, and one of the physicians that I respected very much, he came in the middle of the night and he started the thrombolysis for my father, and he saved his life. So again, another...
That had a big impact.
Yes, another pivotal moment in my life that I thought that here is a specialty that really makes an impact. And probably when you are young, you think that only a few organs are important, right? The brain, the heart, the kidneys, and then the rest can function somehow. You can fix the others. But, I wanted to think big, and if I want to make an impact, that impact, I want it to be significant.
Hi, I'm Rhonda Crow, founder and CEO for MD Coaches. Here on RX for Success, we interview a lot of great medical professionals on how they grew their careers, how they overcame challenges, and how they handle day-to-day work. I really hope you're getting a lot of great information. But if you're looking for an answer to a specific problem, management or administration challenge, or if you're feeling just a bit burnt out, like maybe you chose the wrong career, well, then there's a faster way to get the help you need. No, it's not counseling, it's coaching. RX for Success is produced by MD Coaches, a team of physicians who have been where you are. I know you're used to going it alone, but you don't have to. Get the support you need today. Visit us at mymdcoaches.com to schedule your complimentary consultation. Again, that's mymdcoaches.com, because you're not in this alone.
We'll get back to our interview in just a moment, but right now I want to tell you a little bit about Physician Outlook. If you haven't discovered this remarkable magazine, please do so very soon. It was created by physicians for physicians to showcase the intersection between clinical and non-clinical interests, whether it's writing, painting, cooking, politics, and dozens of other topics. Physician Outlook gives a physician perspective. It's available online and in print. It's really unique among physician lifestyle magazines. And like the Prescription for Success podcast, Physician Outlook amplifies the voice of any physician who has something to say. It also engages patients who still believe in physician-led, team-based care. And Prescription for Success listeners can get 3 months free when you enter our promo code RX for Success and select the monthly option at checkout. That's a really great deal on this stunning publication. And now let's get back to today's interview. Well, I bet you were a very good cardiologist, but from looking at your CV, it was at about that time that you decided to come to this country, and I'm really interested to know how that came about.
Definitely. So when I was a cardiologist resident, I started to be very interested in research. And I applied for a PhD program, and I started to, study many things in cardiology, of course. But then I discovered the transplant immunology, and I discovered that transplantation can make a huge difference to the patients that had a big myocardial infarction or a heart disease incompatible with life. So I applied, and I was surprised to receive an invitation for a postdoctoral fellowship at Harvard University. And that was another moment in my life. Then I said, okay, I'm going to go there. I'm going to learn, publish, do an impact, and I'm going to come back to Romania. So that moment of leaving Romania as a medical cardiologist and coming to the United States was very important in my life. And I left my family, my friends. I came to live in a 300 square feet loft. And then I had to start learn a new society rule. That was brutal, actually, because...
Was it really?
Yes, because you don't know anything. You don't know anything about, banking, social security. It is very hard to navigate a new system without the knowledge of that you actually take it for granted when you live here. And when I came here, I was really excited. I never thought about any of the small details. I was just like, okay, I'm going there. But coming here, you have to learn those things. And I learned. But it wasn't easy, I have to say that.
I can imagine. Did you by any chance know anyone who was Romanian when you first arrived in Boston?
You're going to laugh about that, but right before I came here, I connected with someone from my city, from my group of friends, actually. And after I came in the United States, we stayed in touch, we became friends, and today he is my husband, and we have 3 kids.
That's a pretty good connection.
Yes, we have 3 kids and a dog.
So you navigated the ways of the United States together and decided to make a lifetime of it. That's a great story.
No. He was here already.
Oh, I see.
And I was just asking questions about small things that I was supposed to know, like visa issues and how to find a house. I did not know about the fact that when you rent something here, you have to have a credit history or a background check. And all of those things were like, why? I'm a normal person. I never did anything wrong to anyone. Why would they want to check me? But those things, I think, took me time to understand. And it was, in a way, easier to navigate. If you have someone to ask questions, it's so much easier to navigate. But it was funny that, we did not connect it in Romania. We had to cross an ocean to come here and connect.
Those stories really fascinate me when I even think about being dropped down into another country where I don't know the language, I don't know east from west, I don't know anything. And not only did you survive, but my goodness, you have become at least a nationally and probably an internationally famous physician. And if that's not a prescription for success, I don't know where we're going to find one. But let's move you on. At some point, there was a transition from cardiology to rheumatology, and I'd like to know
Yes.
more about that.
So after I spent about 4 years and a half in research, I did a lot of clinical research, and I was fortunate again to work in a project of heart transplants, and I work with centers that were probably the biggest in the world. I enjoy that. I enjoy presenting to congresses, national, international. I enjoy writing and publishing. But at some point, I wanted my interaction with the patients back. And when I started to talk to people around me about what I need to do to be able to practice medicine, in the initial phase, it was scary because I already had one kid and a family to take care of. And that seemed to be very, very hard to pass again all the steps and go into the residencies here.
Right.
And eventually I decided that I will do that. And in 1 year, I passed all the USMLE steps. I apply and I got in internal medicine. And my thought at that point was that I will continue my cardiology interest and I'm going to work in transplant immunology until one day when I was at a lecture and somebody, that was later on one of my mentors, he was presenting about rheumatoid arthritis and lupus and the connection with the immune system. And remember, I have a PhD in immunology, and I was like, what is he talking about? Because all I knew about rheumatology was old people. It was not too much exposure that I had in Romania in rheumatology. And I thought, I always had this misconception that rheumatology is for those laid back people and that will treat just arthritis, and there's nothing exciting about it. And he was talking about the advances in the treatments, and he was talking about things that I have studied in transplantation.
Right.
And I was like, wow, this is a field that is blooming, actually. And it's so much more to understand and so much more that we can apply to make a difference in the lives of our patients. So I followed him and I asked him to have a rotation with him. And when I was there, I was like blown away by many things. First, the impact that they make and the rheumatologist can make in the life of a patient that comes in horrible pain, many times crippled, and in a couple of months, you bring them back to life. And then the second thing that kind of shocked me is this profound relationship that a rheumatologist develops with the patient. You take care of chronic conditions, and the patient, you have time with the patient to develop that kind of relationship. And that seems to me unreal based on what I was seeing that is happening in the traditional medical system. When you go in, quickly see the patient, give a pill, move on to the next one. So that kind of relationship was very close to my mind and to my heart.
It appears to me that the connection came from your familiarization with immunology in the transplant world, which actually translated fairly well into the way we look at rheumatologic disease nowadays. Am I close to correct?
That's very true. The other question that I get asked all the time is like, how did you transition from cardiology to rheumatology? But cardiology is part of rheumatology. All of my diseases, my autoimmune diseases will affect the heart. This chronic inflammation that we talk about is actually the source of our chronic conditions, including heart disease and premature atherosclerosis and all the other chronic conditions that we talk today. And even obesity is connected with inflammation. So it took me a long time to understand that immune system is not impacting only the way that we respond to a transplant or how we can defeat bacteria or viruses. Then, in a couple of years, I discovered that the impact of our immune system is so broad that it's unbelievable how ignorant I was. I'm going to talk about me and thinking that it's just affecting one area.
I think that probably applies to all of us. One of the things that I reflect upon frequently is that when I began my surgical training many, many, many years ago, we thought peptic ulcer disease was a malfunction that caused the stomach to create too much acid, and there were dozens of different kinds of operations that you could do to suppress acid production, and you could do vagotomies, and you could remove part of the stomach, and you could reroute the stomach, and all those kinds of things that we were doing back then. And then one day we discovered that indeed it was an infectious disease.
That's very true. It's part of our learning.
Yeah. And what you're getting at is that the inflammatory response, the immune response, is at the seat of so much of mammalian pathology, and I can see how that would have significant interest for a person like you who had dealt with cardiology that, again, we thought about it in an entirely different way 30 years ago. And nowadays things have changed quite a bit. So again, getting the story back to you, obviously that was a good move for you. You have found yourself to be very, very comfortable and very fulfilled as a rheumatologist. But apparently something else was missing, and I think it might have had something to do with patient access. So would you like to talk about that?
Definitely. So after I graduated my fellowship, in the initial phase, I started in a private practice system, and you don't know the system, or you don't know how the system works being a fellow or a medical resident or even a resident. And you just have to be on your own, interact with the system as a physician to understand the system. So I was going into this journey, and I started to notice things that were very hard for me to understand. We live here in the United States, where we have the most advanced medical system in the world, the most advanced technological system. The books are written here. Many of the therapeutic options are invented here. But then I was seeing patients suffering because they don't have enough access. They don't have the access when they need it to a specialist like me. I was seeing patients that for a consultation, they had to wait between 4 and 6 months. I was seeing patients that were waiting too much in the waiting rooms. The time that I was supposed to spend with the patient was short and shorter and shorter. And my schedule was flooded every day. I was not able to give the care that I wanted to give to the patients. And on top of that, there were a couple of situations when I realized that without even knowing, because you don't know anything about the cost of the test or the cost of the consultation that you give, I was actually hurting financially my patients. I had a few situations when the patients came to me with a huge bill, and I knew I was not responsible for those money or charging any of this money. And when I tried to help the patient, there was no way to find out how much a test will cost or, a medication will cost. And I was asking, even for an infusion that I was prescribing, how much is that costing the patient? Because the patient is asking me. We, the physician, are the interface with the patients, and the physician is responsible to answer the questions of the patient. And when the patient was asking me that, I had no idea about how much it's going to cost my consultation, my, labs that I order, or my x-ray. And those were my orders. And I started to dig into this, and I realized that there are ways to find out the prices, but not in the traditional system. And the patient would have to be willing to pay cash. And many times the cash price was incredibly lower compared to the, prices that I was able to see on those bills. And I'm going to give you a straight example. I was talking to a colleague of mine that went to direct primary care. She was an internal medicine doctor, and she told me that a CBC test in her practice is $5 or $6,
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, wow, but in my practice it's $70 or $80. Where I was asking her, how much is an ANA in your practice? And she was telling me an ANA is about $20. And I was like, wow, in my practice it's $150, just the ANA, not the
Mm-hmm.
panel of autoantibodies. And then I started to ask about imaging. Is it possible to find x-rays for cash price or medication for cash price? Not all medication can be found for cash prices, but many can. And, at some point I was like, I was sad to see all these things happening, and the time that was restricted with the patient, the communication was fragmented, between me and the patient. There were 6 or 7 other people that would interact with the patient before the patient sends a message to me. And I said to myself, I think we have the tools in our days to do medicine otherwise. And that was before the pandemic. And, I had these discussions even with my friends, my doctors, that my friends that were doctors. And I was telling them about telemedicine. I said to them, why are we comfortable to do our banking, our shopping, our entertainment online? And we cannot give a consultation or follow a patient online or, doing telemedicine. And I looked to the roots of telemedicine, and I figured out that telemedicine is practiced for many years in this country, and a form of or a type of telemedicine. And I decided at some point to do my practice and to be able, with my practice, to break the norms, from breaking geographical barriers to avoiding this delay in care and help the patient not only to get better, but also help the patient be responsible and never burn financially the patients. So that's how I started my company, which is called Rheumatologist OnCall, in 2019, before the pandemic, with this vision in my head to be able to change the way that medical care is delivered. It's the same medical care, but the way that we deliver it, it's a little bit different.
Sure. Well, I think a lot of people are familiar with direct primary care, which has really blossomed tremendously in the last 3 to 5 years in this country. And that one's pretty easy to figure out. Patient pays a subscription fee, and they can see the doctor for whatever reason. It's difficult for me to digest how that works in specialty care. So can you enlighten us a little bit on that? How does the economics of that system work?
When I started my journey as a specialist in direct care, I had no idea that there is another specialist in the United States that is practicing in this model. And when I talked to other people, every single one tried to discourage me, because the way that we receive our patients is through a referral system from primary care physicians. So without the backup of a system to feed you patients as a specialist, you think you might not survive. But I was stubborn, and I started to dig into the direct primary care. And I said to myself, there must be a way that we can provide excellent care on the same principles, be affordable and be transparent as well. And for specialists, it's a little bit difficult because you have to figure out ways to put yourself out there for patients to find you. Because what I've learned is that you don't need a system to back you up. You don't need a system to send you patients. Patients will find you. But for that, you have to be there, you have to be seen, you have to be present, and you have to connect with a lot of people, and always offer exceptional care. And I know many of us, if not all of us, that's the way that we want to offer. We want to offer exceptional care. But you asked me about the dynamic or about the economic engine. You can do it in 2 ways. One is just to charge a fee for service, which again is affordable and transparent.
Mm-hmm.
Or you can have a hybrid model where you offer the cash price, but you also take some insurances that you consider are worthwhile to take it.
Mm-hmm.
And the other way is that for some people, including myself, patients that do need chronic care, they can pay a membership and they can have access every time when they need it. It's very similar to the direct primary care.
Mm-hmm.
But in my specialty, for example, patients with lupus or rheumatoid arthritis, these are the patients, the majority of patients that I have, patients with inflammatory arthritis, like rheumatoid arthritis, psoriatic arthritis, ankylosing spondylitis. They do need frequent checkups of their medication and their labs. They do need chronic monitoring. For those patients, you can offer them a membership model.
That makes a lot of sense. And I'm also wondering a little bit about how the patients find you. I suspect that a great many patients who find themselves in need of a rheumatologist do so because they're seeing either a family practitioner or an internist who has come to the conclusion that this is a problem in need of a rheumatologist, and they make a phone call to their favorite rheumatologist and they're told, well, your next available appointment is 5 months from now, and then we just wait. Do people actually do that still and accidentally find that they can actually find Diana Girnita in the yellow pages, or how do the patients find their way to you?
This is very true. Most patients, they do realize that after a visit with their primary care physician, they have to see a specialist or a
Right.
rheumatologist. And in United States, there are about 6,000 rheumatologists in the whole United States. And imagine there are about 72 million people with a diagnosis of arthritis that we know today. And this is on the rise. So those rheumatologists, most of them are limited to see patients in one area, right? Because when you graduate, you pass the board, and then you stay in an area and you are limited to see patients where you are licensed.
Mm-hmm.
So they're not able to see a lot of patients. And some rheumatologists, they work part-time. And the numbers of rheumatologists that come out every year is very limited. And a lot of the rheumatologists will retire in the next 10 years. So patients will try to find the rheumatologist looking at their insurance website, and they either take the recommendation from the primary care or they look on their insurance website and try to find someone that is in their network,
Right.
whatever network means. And they start making phone calls and they cannot find a rheumatologist to see them. The national average time for rheumatology is between 4 and 6 months, and we are talking about those times if you are located in a metropolitan area or if you are located on the east or the west coast.
Mm-hmm.
In the middle of America, north part of America or south part, there are not many rheumatologists. And most of the rheumatologists, they will see patients in person, and that limits the access of patients.
Sure.
So patients in our days, they're very smart and they say, okay, what are my options? And they start looking online. That's how many of them will find my website, and 99% of them will read the reviews about me, because, when you do business online, people think that it might be something fishy about it.
Yeah.
And I actually had, someone, I'll tell you a story that's very, very relevant for what's going on in the online space today. And then they start calling you and they make an appointment. But let me come back to that story. So it was this gentleman, which was a veteran, a very young veteran. He had an inflammatory arthritis that came out of the blue. And he tried through the VA system to find something through their, connected people that they knew to find someone. And he could not find anyone for 3 months. He was in terrible pain. And his wife started to look online for a rheumatologist. And she found me. She called my office. I picked up the phone that day and I talked to her and I said, I'm the doctor. And she said, are you the doctor? And I said, yes, I am the doctor. And,
I bet that never happened to her before.
Exactly. After a couple of other sentences, she stopped and she said, are you sure you are the doctor? And I said, ma'am, I am the doctor. My name is Dr. Girnita, and I'm here to find out how can I help you. And at the end of the conversation, she said to me, I have never spoke to a doctor on the phone to answer, the phone to schedule an appointment with me. And then she said to me, I'm going to talk to my husband and we'll call you back. The next day, the husband called and, my assistant answered and she said, yes, Dr. Girnita is a doctor, he's a legit doctor. And he said to her, but I would like to speak to her and to see if she's really the one who talked to my wife. And I pick up the phone and I talk to him. And then he said to me, last night I spent 2 hours to research everything about you. And I know you are from Romania and I know you are, doing this business. And I read every single review. You had 80 reviews. Do you know that? I was like, I don't know that. But, you are too good to be true. That's what he said to me.
Well, I can see that is a problem yet to be solved. But this whole area of direct primary care, direct specialty care clearly has created a tremendous amount of interest. And I should think it would only be a matter of time that those access problems began to find solutions, particularly because there are people like you with the motivation to make those problems go away. So that's a really good sign for those of us in the U.S. who have dealt with a system that has only grown worse over the years that I practiced medicine. So I can't tell you how it warms my heart to know that it really looks like things are going to get better. And not only are you doing it right there in Sunnyvale, California, you're actually is it 10 states now?
Yes, I am licensed in 10 states.
How do you do that?
With perseverance. So when I started to get licensed in a few states. And then when I started to see there is interest from other states, I added those states to my license. But the whole process of getting licensed in each state, because you basically have to do it in each state still, it's very complicated. And to be sincere with you, this is not the scope of this discussion or my role here. But I think it's very hard and is not going to serve the patients. If we are so few specialists in all specialties, we should be able to practice in multiple states to be able to serve more patients. Otherwise, limiting us to a certain area will not help the patients that are truly in need. We all know that we have a very good medical training here in the United States, and we pass the same type of boards. Why are we not able to practice in all states? If you are in good faith, I really don't know.
Well, Deanna, it is clear from your record of success so far that you are very good at recognizing problems and you are very good at coming up with solutions. So I have no doubt that you are going to be a very big part of this solution. And I'm excited to sit back and watch and see how it develops. I've really enjoyed this conversation today, but at this point, what I'm going to do is get out of your way and give you an opportunity to do what I think my audience came for, and that is hear you talk about yourself. So I'm going to close my mic, and Dr. Deanna Girnita will give us her personal prescriptions for success.
Thank you. So I want to tell you all about 7 lessons that I learned being a woman entrepreneur. I never dreamed to become an entrepreneur. Actually, entrepreneurship found me. And I'm going to start with the first lesson. And this is called why. I had to understand that when you set up your goals for becoming successful in your career or your business, you should always start by asking why. Why do I want to join, or why do I want to go in this journey? And make sure that reason resonates with you. Because somebody told me at some point, it's like having a personal mission is like designing the footprint for your dream house. When I started my company, Rheumatologist OnCall, I wanted to break the geographical barriers and use the technology that I have today to serve patients in time, to avoid the delay in care and the bottlenecks of the traditional system where you cannot see a specialist if you don't have a referral from a primary care physician. I wanted to cut the wasted time in waiting rooms. I wanted to offer my patients direct communication with me and make healthcare affordable and offer transparent pricing. Number 2, when you start your business, be open to learn new skills, even things that you don't like. I never liked accounting or looking at finances. I did not know anything about marketing or branding, but I had to learn. And I think this is the best way to do things because you are the advocate for your business and you have to know what you have to ask the others to do for you. And one time I heard someone saying that you must learn things that you hate to achieve what you love. And that applies to me as well. Number 3, build up your brand early. Obviously, be respectful and be respected by others, inspiring them. Most of your patients or most of our patients associates our face with the practice that we have. And when you offer exceptional care, patients will not forget. And you are there to build the brand of your practice. Doesn't matter if you are an employee or an employer, you are still the builder of that brand. Number 4, hard work and perseverance are behind all successful companies. Being an entrepreneur is like running a marathon and not a sprint. And be prepared to fail or pivot because this is part of the journey. I had to do that myself. Number 5, keep a positive mindset. We all have good, bad days and very few memorable days. And the other day, I was walking on the streets with my daughter and I saw a quote that I want to tell you about today. We cannot control the wind, but we can adjust the sails. I think this is very important about how you look at things and how you address the roadblocks that you're going to have. Number 6, and this is very important, connect with people outside of the medical field. Being a physician, most of my interactions were with people in the medical field. However, being an entrepreneur, I understood there are so many outside, intelligent, and bright people outside of my field. So start paying attention, learn, and connect with the people with all backgrounds, because you will be amazed about their contribution to the world. And number 7, and this is the last, your success is measured in what you leave behind, how people will remember you, and your contribution to this world. As Steve Jobs said, we are here to put a dent in the universe, and people that will be crazy enough to think they can change the world are actually the ones that will change the world. Those are my 7 lessons that I had to learn, and I'm very happy to share them with you. Thank you.
Well, Dr. Girnita, you have clearly accumulated a tremendous amount of wisdom in your years, and I think the medical profession is very fortunate to have you among us, and it has been a great pleasure for me to speak with you today. I thank you for being here. Before we go, I want to give you an opportunity to tell our audience where they can find you and more about you.
Sure. They can find me on my website. It's called rheumatologist OnCall.com. I do have an Instagram account and a Facebook account, and I also have a YouTube channel. It's also called Rheumatologist OnCall, or you can research my name, Diana Girnita, and you will find the channel. The channel was created to educate patients and offer them good quality education materials about autoimmune diseases and especially arthritis. And if they are interested, if other people are interested, especially physicians looking to change their way of practicing and being a specialist in direct care, I have started the Direct Specialty Care Alliance, where we want to nurture and grow people and grow other physicians in the field, in the direct specialty care field. And together with a few other very enthusiastic physicians that I was able to find along my journey, we build resources and we want to promote your practice, and we want to create an organization that will be nurturing this community, and we want to help each other and our patients, of course.
Well, Dr. Diana Girnita, thank you so much for being with us today. It really has been a pleasure for me to have this conversation. I thank you so much for your time, and I wish you much success.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us today. Please remember that when you review us and leave a 5-star rating, that helps give our podcast much more visibility and reach more listeners. Exclusive content is available on our Patreon page, including membership-only material like personal rapid-fire Q&A sessions with our guests. And to be sure you never miss an episode, visit our website at rxforsuccesspodcast.com to subscribe. And while you're there, learn how to get CME credit from CMify just by listening. Special thanks to Ryan Jones, who created and performs our theme music. And remember, be sure to fill your prescription for success with my next episode.